The Roots of Success podcast is for the landscape professional who's looking to up their game. We've got a brain trust of experts to help you nurture the roots of a successful business and grow to the next level. This is the Roots of Success.
Welcome to another episode of Roots of Success, and I'm your host, Tommy Cole, and wow, we have another amazing guest, my friend from like years ago, Bob Carey. He is now with Crest Outdoor Power Equipment, an autonomous battery-operated mowing machine, dude. But man, way before that, I knew you. I'm just going to call you. You didn't know this was going to happen, Bob, but I'm going to call you the maintenance man.
I like that, Tommy.
I'm going to call you the maintenance man. Welcome to the show. I'm super stoked to have you. Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great, Tommy. I appreciate you bringing me on. It's really fun just to do this right off the cuff. You know, you reached out to me and we're like, let's do this podcast. I'm like, all right, let's get prepped. And you're like, yeah, we do a lot. Let's just go.
Let's just go. You know, that's also the thing, Bob, is just kind of funny. Is just don't overthink it. Let's just jump on and do this thing because that's what's fun about this. I never thought I'd be here in a million years. We're now going 2 years strong on this show, and we spread out to so many people across the country. It's just been fun to watch. And every time I travel, I always see someone that says, man, I love your podcast. Let's keep going. So that fuels my motivation 100%. Bob, I am extremely blessed and fortunate to have met you probably 6-7 years ago as my guest. Back in the early McFarland Stanford days, did some recruiting to get you kind of where you're going. And now we're here today. But Bob, tell us some of the past, like what the heck, why did you choose this crazy profession? You sent me some photos last night that I was like, wow, I cannot believe you saved some photos of a scrawny little kid, right? Like myself, you know, yeah, mowing grass, basically. Tell me about yourself and how you got started.
You know, there's a lot of guys that have gone out and mowed grass, Tommy, in their pickup truck or whatever and done some lawns, but when I tell people, you know, my wife had mentioned in the past, she's like, you got to forget about that stuff you did as a little kid. And I'm like, honey, this wasn't some little kid thing. You know, I
own it.
Yeah. So my mom, I remember, you know, I had my first mower, but my mom, I call her. I'm like, hey mom, I want to go pick up this mower I found on eBay. It's a 36-inch walk behind mower. We're going to go pick it up together. So I have my driver's permit, but I had bought my first truck already just from mowing some lawns with a mower that I had bought when I was 12. So we go together. We get down there, the guy puts it in the truck, a belt-driven, brand new Husqvarna walk-behind mower. We get home, Mom, how are we going to get this mower out of the truck? Like, truck's high. We got wooden rails. Yeah. And she's like, but she was on board, you know, that's what made it fun. It was like, yeah, I'm going to support him. This is a crazy idea. What is he going to do with this big mower? You know, I'm from West Virginia, and the small town that I'm in, I remember one guy having a 36-inch mower at the time of all these landscaping companies. And so that just grew, Tommy, to the point that we'd have like 65 accounts in high school and college that we would do weekly with football double sessions. College was 2 hours away. We would take our classes in Monday through Thursday. Yeah. Fridays and Saturdays is game on, however many hours it took to get the work done, rain or shine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I saw some of the pictures you sent me was the mowing charges, you know, $30 here, $40 here, you know, it had them all itemized out. I'm like, we remember those days of charging clients and then to go collect the money and all that. That's hard work.
Yeah. You know, Tom, even back then with those small charges, once you had really high route density, a lot of houses on one street, you could start to do pretty well. You know, the target would be like $1 a minute back then. I remember I would read Lawn Site. Tommy, did you ever read that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
You got all your tricks and tips.
Yeah. So there was a forum blog called Lawn Site before, you know, my computer was still dial up. And I would read Lawn Site over and over and over, get all the tips and tricks. And it was like, hey, if you can make $1 a minute. And so it was like, all right, so you look at all your makeup of all your accounts and you're like, I'm doing this big one. It's $50, but it takes 2 hours. It's like, let's get more at 25 and do 4 of them in an hour on one street. And let's pump up and it's smaller equipment, less total cost of ownership for the small mower, right?
Yeah,
totally. So you're making more profits.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, for you to figure that out at an early age is pretty successful because quite frankly, I know some companies that still can't figure that out, and they've been around for 20 years. So,
Yeah.
so tell me about you had a lot of experience in maintenance. Like, you started working for companies, so you eventually sold your business or got out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I got out.
Yeah. And then you went to work for a company. So tell me
Yeah.
about that experience. I think you were more like into some operations experience. Tell me about how that went.
You know, Tommy, I had a pretty big personality.
Yeah.
And so people kind of knew who I was from that business back in West Virginia. So I remember I'm in a supermarket, I get a phone call and the guy's like, "Hey, Bob, I own a landscaping company down in Charleston, West Virginia. It's been in business for 30 years. And I want to open a branch in West Virginia University. I'm in Charleston. They're 3.5 hours away, but I want to open a branch and I want you to open it. There's nothing there." I'm like, "Well, we have the contract with all the athletic facilities to do all the maintenance, except for the sports field, like the agronomy stuff, Tommy." And
Yeah.
so I'm like, "Okay, that sounds great. I'd love to do that." So I'm searching for what we're going to rent. They send me a brand new truck. They start sending workers up from 3.5 hours away to stay in hotels. And I'm in charge. And it's my first job out of having my own business, you know? And so that was really fun, Tommy. And I mean, one of the things that's key I remember was, "Hey, you're going to mulch the whole football stadium for WVU. Oh yeah, by the way, it's 100 yards and it's all by hand. And there's going to be two of you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. It's almost starting over completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you took off and ran that new branch. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
You know, that was, and I want to preface it too. Like I had gone there for landscape architecture at WVU. It was a phenomenal program. It was so fun working there. After college, you're like still in party mode. So it's like party mode, work mode. This is so fun here.
WVU very well. One of my best friends went there and got an undergrad, and then he got a grad at my alma mater, Texas Tech. And he told me some story. He was in a fraternity. He told me lots of stories that probably are not appropriate on this show. Yeah. So I know how you mountaineers can party.
Yeah, work should be fun. So I had a really good, my best friend, I talk to him every day. His name's Matt Griskovich. He works at Wheat Salon and Custom Landscaping.
Yeah, you're a little bit more here.
Yeah. And so Matt and I had done a lot of the mowing together back in high school. We had worked with each other. I took on half of his accounts, my half, and we combined. And that's how I got to know him. So Matt calls me and he's like, "Bob, I'm working for this incredible company in Washington, D.C. You should come." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so, Tommy, that's a huge move from a guy in a small town in West Virginia. To be like, "I'm going to move to Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was there?
You know, I get there and really incredible company, all high-end residential. I can recall the first day, they send you out. I'd never punched a time clock. So I go there, I hit ADP time clock with my hand, and I'm next to a guy, I remember Ernesto Palacios from El Salvador. I had no Spanish background. His English was limited. My Spanish was limited, but we had a blast together. And I enjoyed that more than anything, was getting to know Ernesto and more about El Salvador and his culture. And I love the idea of being bicultural. And so I was just totally bought in. I wanted to know everything about the people I was working with.
Yeah, that's fun. You want to get in the field where the action is to learn the most. So if anyone's young up on the show, get in the trenches and learn. There's no another better way to experience how to be a good operator, how to be a good listener, learner, how to problem solve, and what good looks like on a maintenance property, right?
Yeah.
All those things are a lot. Well, I learned in the industry as a young, scrawny kid, coming out of school, and I'm working with people that have been in the industry for 40 years, and like, "Oh, here comes another whippersnapper," trying to make his name. And I'm like, "Listen, man, George, I'm just here to learn. Just show me everything. I will listen and all that." So kudos to you. So then took a turn. You went from far East Coast and now to West Coast. What happened, and who did you work for there?
I decided at one point, I was like, you know what? I did a big bicycle trip, and I really hadn't challenged myself to do that. I had worked and worked and worked, and I really focused on so much work time. I was working, every other Saturday, and I hadn't experienced the world because I'd started, in my opinion, I hadn't experienced it because I had started my business so early. So a friend of mine, he asked me to go on a 2-week trip mountain biking. We go to Bend, Oregon. We go to Salt Lake City. We go all over. My best friend Matt from Wheaties with me. We're out there for 14 days. We bike pack through Utah, 140 miles, self-supported. It was incredible. And I'm like, I'm moving out here. This is it. This is for me. So I fly out here. I don't have a job at all. And I remember back at that time, LinkedIn was just starting to pick up. And I was like, all right, this is my key to success right here as a young man. So I'll boost this up. And that's when I started really digging into that, was back in 2014 through 2018. And yeah, I came out here and I got hired by Crystal Greens Landscaping. I saw I'd interviewed with a couple different people. I saw Bob Grover from Pacific Landscape Management, amazing company. I saw Nathan Dirksen and met with him from Dennis's 7Ds. They've been on the top 100 list forever. And I ended up seeing these trucks at Crystal Greens. And I said, wow, I like the way they keep this company. The sites look good. The trucks look good. And so I talked to them and they hired me. They said, Bob, what role do you want? Or what would you do? And I said, well, what's the most challenging project you have? What's your biggest pain point?
Yeah.
And they said, well, extra projects is what they call it, enhancements. And in irrigation, they said, we need some support on that. They had grown really rapidly, Tommy, from about 4 million to 20 at that time back in 2018. And so they had an antiquated computer system that was just on the tipping point of not being usable, a lot of spreadsheets to track everything. And then we were actually switching to asset by include back then. And so somebody needed to clean up all the data, set up all the iPhones, get all the information from the irrigation department into asset by include, but it all needed looked over and cleaned up before it could get imported. And that's what they hired. That's what they brought me on. Whatever challenging thing they had project, I'd run the project.
Nice. So whatever the most difficult thing was, you said, sign me up. So you're like an operations irrigation guy, so to speak.
Yes.
What are some nuggets that you learned along the way?
Irrigation was a ton of fun. At that time, when I was running operations for the 5 years prior, I was mainly just working with people. It was my soft skills that I was using, and I hadn't done a lot of, data mining. And so I do that, and I get a guy that's still there at Crystal Greens today. I look up to this man, Lee Dirtall, and they've been purchased by Sperber, but Lee is super organized. He's incredible at spreadsheets. So I'm watching this guy and I'm thinking to myself, this guy can do what 10 people can do with this spreadsheet. And so I'm like, Lee, can you teach me how to do this? So we start really looking and digging into data. And then it's funny, we make this big 11 by 17 sheet with 14 columns. We give it to the irrigators and we're like, get all your maps, physical and digital, and let's fill out the whole sheet. How many zones and clocks does everything have? We have 850 sites with all this, Tommy. We know how many zones we have. We know how many controllers we have. And then all of a sudden, Lee builds a dashboard so that every time a job gets done at the end of the day, we know, and we're like, okay, 15% of the sites have been checked and they're running that can get flowers, spring flowers. And the irrigation's got to be on for these spring flowers, So now we have this visibility that we never had. And we're like, okay, now we can go do the flowers at those sites and so on and so forth. And every day we have this new visibility that we never had. And so that's where that really scaled. And then it was like, okay, take on the next thing. Yeah. And that was a ton of fun.
So operational efficiency, scalable system that you can, that the entire company could jump in on and rise to the occasion, right? We're used to sort of paper and spreadsheets and things, but there's an automation process in order to improve your maintenance and anything in your landscape business. I love that. And then you get to our awesome friend and company, Grow Outdoor Living. One of my favorite, just awesome dudes, Mr. Garrett, just a amazing person, an amazing company. I've been knowing him for a long time, and he's just passionate and loves what he does, loves the business. And now you're becoming in sales, right? Yeah. And so you become a let's just call it maintenance sales, right? Probably new maintenance, reoccurring maintenance. But one of the fascinating things that I read on your bio was 200% increase in the span of 5 years in maintenance. Boom. Tell me, what the heck did you increase that so fast in such a short amount of time?
Well, I will say, when first it was incredible to go work with Garrett. He was different than a lot of owners that I've worked with in the past, really focusing on people, on the core values of the company. A lot of companies very focused on profit. Not that any of the last companies weren't really about the people. They definitely were, But the way Garrett approaches things was a bit different than I had seen in the past. And it showed me a lot by the way he treated people.
Okay.
And just treated people incredible. So yeah, Tommy, we go in and I would say, Southwest Washington, where they are in Vancouver, Washington, Camas, and Ridgefield is really exploding, still is at the time. There's a lot of technology, chips manufacturing in Camas. And so that does help drive people. And the more there was driving people, it made my job fairly easy.
Yeah.
Where I came in was I saw a really big opportunity to get into homeowners associations. And like I had mentioned before, doing something hard, I was like, I'll never do the homeowners association. Everybody's like, that's the hardest thing you could do. And then I just got
managers, board members, all that. It's tricking.
Yeah.
So how did you get in?
Garrett had partnered with a great company where they were installing the landscaping at every front yard. Okay. And this company, this development company and home builder, they really cared that the whole aspect of it, from the quality build of the home, the quality build of the landscape, and the care after, was all in alignment, and that those homes would sell efficiently and be a great community for people all along the way until it was turned over to the homeowners association. Because in the beginning, Tommy, they're managed by a property management company with a developer in that process with the homeowners. So, these were complicated, and we had one. Well, I got to be successful with that first one, and the way I look at everything is how can I create a system around this that can scale? And then how do I make it so if I stepped away, someone else can take the lead and continue to operate this? So
100%. So tell me about that. That's I feel like you're saying it's an automated sales proposal process, so to speak. Is that right?
Well, what I looked at was at Crystal Greens. I'd seen something with commercial that I hadn't seen with my residential background of Wheats. They were doing budget plans with all their commercial clients. And I said, well, I need to do a budget plan with the homeowners association. So let's dig in. Okay. And one of the first things is they have a reserve study. A lot of people may not even be familiar with that, but it's money they set aside for capital improvements, their regular operating budget year to year. And so I had, the financial acumen you need to bring to that adds a whole nother layer of value. So I position myself as, I'm your landscape financial advisor. Let's look at your reserve study. So you start to look at these reserve studies and say, who did it? Are they from the area? Because the area here in the Pacific Northwest is different than others. So let's take a look at your reserve study together. What do you have? What do they have factored in? So we look at some of those things and see, big thing was, hey, do you have stormwater maintenance for your stormwater swale? Did you know that it's yours to maintain? No, we didn't necessarily know that it was ours. So with my landscape architecture background, we jump on GIS, we look at maps and say, yeah, that site is yours to maintain. You need to set this money aside to maintain that facility. And then in the Pacific Northwest with the stormwater management principles, they might have underground filters, Tommy. So you have these filters you need to clean and have changed every 5 years. It could be $25,000, $30,000 every 5 years to do that. But did you know? And so by bringing that conversation in, now they've gained trust that, hey, you know what? We should let Bob review all this and give us his feedback on building this budget.
Love it. So education and knowledge goes a long ways, right? It's not at the end of the day just mowing grass. It's much further than that. It's make them aware of what's going on the property, the reasons why there is drainage, reason why there are swells, reason why there are weeds, reason why there's shipment in the ground due to bad management of the grounds, aeration, all those practices that us landscapers know. It's all in our head, which is kind of easy, but then our clients have no clue. Yeah. And all we do is propose a price with no added value. So I love the fact that you became a landscape financial advisor. Wow. Yeah. That is such a massive takeaway and experience, because it's all about the money management and it's all about the property looking good. That's it. There's nothing else, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you check those two boxes, you could also make an argument, maybe the third box is just communication, right? Readily available, etc. That's amazing. Tell me about so you were able to grow it. Did you use that sort of terminology of education and knowledge with the client and financial advisor, and then repeat the process to every single person you meet. And it started to domino effect to get your massive growth and maintenance.
Yeah, Tommy, it did. And the big thing was I took the data management we were using at Crystal Greens that Leah taught me, and it was like, okay, let's start tracking things from day one when I have one HOA with one house. And that's how I started it. And so for example, it would be, how many homes needed an irrigation repair this year? How many calls did we get? And then I'd show them, hey, you had this many service calls. You paid a service call fee of $125 every time we came out. Why don't I build it into your maintenance contract at the maintenance contract rate and save you money? And they're like, you can do that for us? Yeah, we're partners. Let's do this. And then I know I can allocate that resource now. I have more reoccurring revenue. And then I can ensure I'm staffed to support my clients so that it can scale. And then what it did is that, Tommy, was I could divide that at the end of the year too and say, you needed to do this many. On average, when you do your spring startup next year, it was $38 per house that you needed. And then you track the data again, because at some point, Tommy, we had 7 HOAs and some had 800 front yards, and we maintained every front yard at these HOAs. So it got to the point where we were doing 2,500 front doors a week.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is data drives decisions.
Mm-hmm. It supports the client. You got to share it with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's no different in installation either. You got to give me, what are we producing out there, right? Whether it be a certain size mower, whether it be a 5-gallon shrub, how long it takes, how many stops on a route. All of that needs to be data pulled from the field into the office, observed, studied, and then what's the action plan after that, right? In order to improve your own company, but most importantly, improve the client experience, and because you're a financial advisor, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And Tommy, from your financial advisor, you're looking for them to make you successful. So one of the big things is, you don't want your client to have a special assessment, is where your HOA comes in and says, hey, we didn't get enough from you every month. You got to pay $5,000, and additionally, I would go out and fight for the HOAs and say, hey, I'd go to different, we call it bark dust out here, but mulch providers, and say, hey, I have this volume break. I know you're slow in February. Can we get it all in February put down if I get all the HOAs to sign up by this date? And then I pass that savings along to them and celebrated it with them. They're like, well, I only want to use Bob. He came up with this creative way to do it, but I scale that throughout the company, and shows a lot of value, Tommy, to fight for your customers. I mean, one other example is, hey, you need a bunch of 2-inch river rock done. Hey, out here in the Pacific Northwest, we have the conveyor trucks. It's like, can I call that conveyor truck and just get it conveyed in the whole area and just eliminate the labor? And then you show the customer, like, hey, here was the proposal some other guys gave you, and the one we gave you to do it by hand, it was $16,000. I just brought the convey truck and we did it. We cleaned it up. We were in and out in half a day, and it was $8,000. And they're like, that's my financial advisor.
Wow. That is just being smart with your resources, right? At the end of the day, there's always a better way to do things. And I love the fact that you like to pass that on to the client, and that, clients only trust their contractors, right? At the end of the day. So they like, know, and trust, and then they spend more money, and then they want to increase the relationship, and then they want to, see you on the sites, take care of the property. So passing the savings on is phenomenal. You also had to train and develop these teams, right? It's this day and age has been interesting the last years as far as labor. I don't believe we're in a labor shortage. I believe we're in a lack of training and developing people in the trades industry that we are. And we, as landscape owners and managers, do little to nothing to train everyone to take a certain role in their company. And it's doable. I think we hire people and we say, get on a truck and go after it. And our expectation is here with that person, and they come in here and we're like, forget it. It was a total loss. He doesn't know what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
We should have the expectation here, train them here, give them the career ladder, give them the path, give them the tools, give them the resources, and they will get to that level. Tell me about your sort of couple of nuggets in training and developing, good field people in maintenance.
Well, I want to say one thing, Tommy. Training and developing people, it is massive, and a lot of guys don't realize that they're either owners can be working for their business inside it, they can be working on it, or they think they do landscaping. When you go and talk to people that are working on their business, and I'll give you a really great example. Is there's an amazing guy I met, Niwar Nassim's Landscape up in Puyallup, Washington. He's grown his business 900% in the last 6 years. He does a thing called the culture index, but when I see him and I spoke with him about this, he's working on his team and he understands the training and development of his people is how he got it there. And that's the secret sauce. Wow. Everybody wants to know, is it the software? Is it the measurements? Is it the equipment? Yeah. No, it's training. And, when you walk in a room, and McFarland Stanford does this phenomenally, and ask everybody in there at the executive table, what do you do for business? And, maybe nobody even says it. No, you're in the business of training and developing people to provide service. And so that hits it, that nails it, right, Tommy? So I've always been, I don't do this alone, right? I was in sales. I had an operations manager, Nick McAllister, a grow, phenomenal support, an irrigation manager, Jason Knippelberg, phenomenal support. We worked, the three of us together, as just inseparable. They'd be CC'd on all my emails with my HOAs. If I missed an email or I didn't get back quick enough, they'd respond. Hey, we saw this, we're getting back to it. It was the three of us supporting the client that made it successful. It wasn't standalone sales, standalone account management. They knew when they needed to step in because we had that type of relationship that we fostered for collaboration. It wouldn't be like, hey, the irrigators are the only ones supposed to change the clock on the irrigation controller. No. If I see an issue, I call them and say, hi, I'm here. Can I change this for you?
Right.
We collaborate. So it's about collaboration, Tommy. Yeah. That's the biggest thing.
That's great. No one walks in the door, and if they do, you're very lucky and blessed. So I believe that you could almost hire anyone that has really good culture that you live and die by, and they then in turn train for that certain position. And I believe that your number one asset is people. That's it. Not the fancy skid steer, not the awesome office, not the swag gear. It's the people that operate all of those things. And the more you work on your people, the better the outcomes of your business will be. And, you could spend we should spend 100 hours a year on training and developing team members per one person. That's my recommendation. You'd be like, oh, Tommy, that's a little bit crazy. I don't know. Take some of the best companies out there in the entire country, whatever it is, Southwest Airlines, Chick-fil-A, you name it. They are constantly training and onboarding and continuously improving along the way. So very amazing stuff at Grow Outdoor Living. Garrett is an awesome person. Love that guy. Love that company. So big shout out to them. Man, switching gears to this sort of crazy topic that we're going to talk about now. One of my most favorite things, and I'm starting to dabble into this, is this battery operational equipment, also autonomous robot. I don't even know what the right term is for this, but you are now with Crest Outdoor Power Equipment, a huge move in your career. And I think you are one of the best, if not the best person to run this. And I think you're absolutely excited about this sort of trend. It's happening in the west part of the states, in Northwest and California. I know some of your clients already has gotten into it. But oh my gosh, Crest Outdoor Power Equipment, what do you do for them? And give us a little bit of an introduction.
Yeah, Tommy, I'm the business developer for Oregon, Washington, and Idaho on the commercial garden side. So our 60-volt power tools, our cyber system, and robotics is a phenomenal place to work. It definitely is exactly what I wanted to do. And I went for it. A year and a half ago, Tommy, I was like, this is what I want to do. And this is the path that I'm going to take to get there. And I applied what I applied to be successful with everything else that I've done with these processes and the implementation. So I went to my planning process. What am I going to do? And, it was kind of got a funny start. And I was like, I'm going to go on edX and I'm going to learn how to code. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is really this isn't it. This isn't it. And so
Yeah.
I take this crazy course of like learning binary and writing notes. I send it to my family. I'm like, look at this stuff. They're like, this guy. I think my family thinks I'm completely nuts. And so, and I'm writing binary. So I'm like, okay, this isn't it. So then I'm like, I study the next thing. And then I'm like, you know what? Everything I've done, I've been successful with. I get a coach. So whether it's nutrition, health, weightlifting, grab mentors, grab coaches. It's super important. Like McFarland Stanford, you guys help people just 10x the thing, right? And you can do it fast when you have help. And so I reach out to a coach, and this woman supports me greatly. We design what I want to do. These are the 3 places I want to work out, or 5.
Wow.
And I go for it. And I look back at my notes, Tommy, in my journal just a couple weeks ago, and I was like, Crest was at the top of the list.
No way.
Yes.
Gosh.
I
So
dropped
you visualized it.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. The power, what they call the law of attraction, right? When you think it, you internalize it, and you repeat it over and over, and you can visualize yourself at Crest and on the Root Success podcast with Tommy talking about this thing. This kid, I went a little bit off topic, but I'm with you. The law of attraction, see it, believe it. Well, congratulations on, seeing that come full cycle. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. All right. So tell me about all this stuff, right? I'm in Texas. We are all about big trucks and gasoline and steaks and free roam and range. But that's not always going to be the case moving a little bit down the road, right? I feel like battery equipment is really coming now, right? I feel like 5 years ago, not so much maybe, but like I saw some videos of you, and the amount of power in some of those blowers is amazing, right? So tell me about we'll start with the battery side. Tell me about what the advantages are and some nuggets versus gas, and wow, the technology has gotten way much better.
Yeah. Well, the owner of Crest, he invested a lot of money in developing a new technology, a new battery technology, and we rolled it out. We have our Crest Cyber System 8-minute charge. It's a unique chemistry in the battery, proprietary chemistry in the battery that allows it to charge rapidly, discharge rapidly, and have extreme power along that entire duration of its charge and discharge. Some of these traditional lithium-ion batteries, as they start to discharge, they lose power at the end of that. 10%, 15% left, 10% left. And when it is, you're only getting 70% of the power out of the unit.
Gotcha. So tell me so that's a quick charge. So does Crest have a full line of small tools, small power equipment, all the way to the mowers, push right on? Tell me about some of that equipment.
Yeah, Crest does. They have we call it prosumer. So that's our more homeowners with acreage. They can go out, they'll use that. And we also have our commercial garden line of equipment, our 60-volt system as well. And, there's some unique approach to it. We have our cyber tank where you can charge as you go out in the field on that, or you can opt to take all the power with you in the batteries. So those are kind of the 2 different approaches. And then there's some people that also would have routes where they could plug in while they're out on the route and they could charge while they're out. So there's really 3 approaches, rapid charge off of our cyber tank, charge on site with a small charger that works rapidly as well, plugged in, or take it all with you.
Yeah. And so tell me about the cost. I feel like some people are always going, well, that's way too expensive. Where do I start? Do I buy a mower? Is it a small power cord? Is it a blower to test it out? It's almost like we talked about this earlier, you and I did. It's like software, right?
Yeah.
I think the expectation is just sort of open it up and just use it, and it just works, right? But there's a period of testing and observation and awareness. So talk about some of the costs, if you would, and then talk about where the hell do I start if I want to convert my landscaping business to go, battery up. We won't talk about autonomous robots, but more to battery for now.
Yeah. Well, let's just start with where you'd start. And that would be the way you'd start any project at your business. Start with your planning process, sit down with your team, with your executive team or your leadership team, and decide, what are the desired results, first of all, of this transition? The desired results, they may look something like, number one, cost savings, noise for your clients and for your workers,
Okay.
health benefits, clients and your workers, vibration, fatigue. Cost savings is one of the biggest. So, and clients, one of the biggest things too is across the country is noise bans, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what started some of the push to do it. Oh, the real thing to all this, Tommy, is the cost savings on battery electric versus gas once you have it out there and operating. So we'll talk about that next, but start with your planning process. What's the desired result? Who are your stakeholders? What feedback do you want? What metrics are you going to measure? Okay. And take that out there, communicate that to your team, your executive leadership team, and then, bring us in for a trial their equipment, try whatever, try some equipment, get those metrics filled out. Okay. Sometimes people go through 3 trials before because they haven't established this before they start. So by the 3rd time, now we're creating this process where, we're going to do a cost savings analysis to start, run the crew for 2 weeks with gas, run the crew for 2 weeks with battery. Let's determine what the differential is in that, and then let's extrapolate it out over the year.
Love it. Love it. I love the fact that you said, let's plan this out. I don't think many landscape companies plan out their gas power mowers and equipment as much, right? So this is going to sort of take a bit of a moment. And I feel like I'm going to take a stab at this, Bob, is understand what you have currently, right? This is what we have in our entire fleet. So what I envision is a fleet that has the same sort of equipment across all fleets. It's almost like the FedEx truck, the UPS truck, and you can jump in that same truck and everything is the same. The tools are the same. They're in the same spot, the chargers, the fuel tanks, whatever it may be. So my first evaluation is evaluate what you have, right? You got 4 maintenance trucks, great. Systematize all of those trucks to be the exact same wherever they are. I don't encourage crews to hop from truck to truck, but you want them all the same so it creates less waste in your business. So start from there. My second step I recommend, based on what you're saying, Bob, is now that you have that, understand where you want to get battery operating, right? And maybe it's one of the 4 crews to start out. So maybe get us a couple of products, maybe test them out. Every guy in the field and every woman in the field is like, they're always concerned about the battery of a blower, right? Test, use, operate, understand, all those types of things, and then maybe retrofit or encourage one fleet to go battery and test all that out and understand it before you go all in on all 4 trucks. Is that a recommendation kind of?
Based on the cost savings, Tommy, it's best just to jump right in, do the trial and just go.
All 4, baby. Okay, gotcha.
When you see the cost savings, Tommy, and you really understand your costs, that's where it's critical. You sit down, Chris, we sit down with the CFO, we sit down with the owner, the financial analysts. When you take your cost of fuel and your cost of off-road repairs, and you add that up and you sum it up, and then you take the differential and you take Crest has financing, locked in rates to purchase this equipment over 3 years. You take the cost of that purchase, the cost of electricity, the cost of those repairs, they're very minimal, and you do that differential. We are seeing that many companies who have adopted our equipment, there's companies $109 million. They have 100 crews. They've committed to everyone is converting to Crest.
Wow.
Over 2 seasons at these companies. Why? Because they know that the cost of that fuel plus the cost of off-road repairs exceeds the cost of the financing of the equipment plus the electricity. And that differential averages around $1,000 a person per year, depending on where you are and how many days out of the year you work. Yeah. And based on that alone, people are making 100% conversions to Crest.
Wow. So you have people on your staff that can say, tell me what you got and I'll build it and we'll get it shipped to you, and we'll help you operate it and rock and roll, move on. We'll finance it, pay for it, and let's just go. So you're taking all the guesswork out of the owners and managers of the company. So it's almost like a partnership between landscape company and Crest. Work together, figure out what you got, figure out what you're going to need. We'll build it, literally ship it, operate it, and we're here for you for service.
Absolutely. Zero downtime. We come in, we support those people. We support we help build the dealer up to get them the training to do it. But it's a unique thing from a manufacturer. Wow. And it's super disruptive to the market right now, Tommy. It's incredibly disruptive. But I love that part of it. I'm a little bit of a disruptive guy. And so I come in and I like to shake it up. But yeah, Tommy, we go in these places as a team. We're taking pictures of the breaker panel. We're taking pictures of where the outlets are located. And Tommy, look, that's one thing that I will say Garrett Herger taught me at Grow.
Okay.
Build for capacity. Build for capacity. What does that mean? When you go out and do your parking lot repairs today, you're going to go electric in the next 5 to 10 years. Okay. You are, bottom line. Mm-hmm. What you think you need today to run that crew is not what you really think you're going to need in 5 years whenever everything's fully autonomous, your mowers. And that mower now needs 14 kilowatts to charge overnight. Each crew member maybe needs 7 to 8 kilowatts, maybe 12 kilowatts per crew to charge overnight. What I'm getting at is the build for capacity. It's not that expensive, Tommy. Throw some conduit in the ground, get your sleeves in. You don't have to pull the wire. You don't have to set the breakers. Just put the conduit in the ground with the trench. The trench costs you once. You probably already put one in for something else. Yeah. And then when it comes, you're ready just to stub it up. You stubbed it up, pull the wire, and you're rocking and rolling. But you got to think ahead. Think 5 years out, and be ready for this transition. And that's going to save you a ton of costs, and build for capacity on what I ask people, where are you at with battery today? Have you thought about it? What is your plan for the next 5 years with your company? What would your company look like if it was fully electric, and what would you need to do that?
Wow. It's the way we're going, Bob. And I believe in this a lot. And I feel like you guys up in the West, Northwest are sort of the trendsetters. Parts of it are trying to really force you guys to do it. And landscape companies are getting hit pretty good. And it's educating and changing your mindset on this. But I think it's going to work very, very well. I just think about all the gas cans and the fuel and the repairs and the exhaust. And it's just become our industry where we're just burning and burning and burning constantly. It's dirty, it's messy, it's noisy, right? And I don't even think you can put a dollar amount on all the health implications that it's causing at the end of the day. And so I'm a huge fan. I gotta get into this sort of thing. This is great. Tell me, Bob, about robotics. I feel like I know a couple of companies that are jumping into this fully. I know one that is fully invested into it in their maintenance practices. Tell me about your robotic mower and why it's one of the best in the industry. And then also tell me about, how do you do this? Is it something that you leave at the house or the commercial property, or do you pick it up and move it to locations? Like, tell me about what someone needs to be aware of this sort of robotic thing that does it all for you.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy, robots have been around for a long time. They really have been. 15 years minimum, I would say. I don't know how far back it goes. But we had ones where we'd bury a wire and they did a random pattern, and you were limited to where you could bury the wire and cross across the sidewalk, or how intricate it would be with the buried wire. And they worked. But they had limited case uses. You were limited by the wire. And then as things evolved, we had robots that communicate from a radio signal, line of sight. That gets tough because you don't always have line of sight. So then you're going to put more receivers out there. And then Crest developed their own network of antennas that we have throughout the United States.
Like a cell phone coverage. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
And yeah, so we have our own network of antennas. If you have a landscape company and you want to buy robotics, you can have your own antenna. And so if it makes sense for, what's already in the area. We don't have double overlap of coverage, but if it triangulates, it works. So we'll work that. And so we have that, and that makes it really great and easy to map. You don't have to put up all these repeaters. The process to install the robot now just becomes bring the robot, set the base, and run the mower. And another unique thing is on a lot of these other mowers, to map, you grab your phone and you walk behind it. They call it walking the dog. So you walk behind it real slow and you're moving it around and fumbling around with it. But Crest has a mapping cart. It's a tool where you take the head off the robot, you stick it on the mapping cart, and it's talking to your phone. You map around the outside perimeter. The trees you're not going to go inside, you map those. The paths you're going to go on, and bam, you can walk away. You start mowing in just a few hours. It's pretty incredible. The mowers, they mow down to, inch and a quarter or less. And that's just, I don't have all the golf metrics. If you want to go, I don't do a lot of golf. If you want to do golf and get the golf kit and all that, Tommy, because I'm still pretty new with this, you can go lower. I don't know how low, so I don't want to be misleading about
millimeters.
I don't know what the metrics are, because I'm a landscape guy. So all I care is that it goes up to 3.54, and in the Pacific Northwest, I'm going to mow it 2.25, 2.5, whatever, So it's pretty incredible on that front. And then, you asked what's the difference between ours, what makes ours so great. On a lot of the robots, I see they just have a spinning disc, and ours has more of a deck design to it that comes down on the edges like skirts, and it floats. Everybody wanted a floating deck. We remember the mowers way back when that had a fixed deck. Yeah, right. What happens with a fixed deck? You run it into stuff and scalp, right? Yeah. So it has a floating deck with it comes down at an angle, Tommy. So it kind of contours with the ground as it goes. And then as you go up through our product line, you get the ones that have double blades, 6 instead of 3, and they're stacked. One's on top, one's on the bottom. And the quality of cut, in my opinion, is much better on the double bladed units that are stacked. And then when you get to our top robotics that have built-in wheel motors in the hubs, the traction you get from that is amazing. And the quality of cut, it has 2 discs with 12 blades, and the quality of cut's incredible. You can see it on some of my LinkedIn posts. I know you've seen some of them, and just strike super well. But yeah, Tommy, it's leaving a great quality of cut. People ask, well, what about the clippings? You're mowing it every 3 days. It's a lawn maintainer. So you're taking off just a micro cut. It doesn't tear the edges. So there's a lot of research out there showing now that the health of the lawn is much better just from a fungus and pest standpoint. Also, just counting how many, leaves or how many stalks are in a certain area, stalk count, like density of the lawn. When you start mowing every 3 days, the lawn gets much denser. So you have weed competition that increases, and then you have moisture retention. And you don't have that huge thatch because it's such a micro cutting. It's breaking down really fast with the biology, and it's all that. It's working super well to make this whole system gets better.
Wow. And I could see that, such a minor cuts of blades of grass doesn't really create the thatch, because then you have the whole thatch buildup, and then you have the raking of the thatch, and then you have the aeration, and then you have you have all those things, and then you have the weight of the mowers and the ruts and the wetness and all that. I'm a huge fan. Tell me about one more question about this. Is your robotic mower, if I was to buy one and put it somewhere, right? Is it stay at the property and you leave it and then it's got a home base, or is it something you pick up and go from property to property?
If you look on OPE Plus, we just had an article come out yesterday or the day before. We do have a new autonomous mower we call the Drop and Go. So that mower you take with you, it takes itself out of the truck, it mows the area, it'll get back in the truck. The other, that's coming. And what we currently have is mowers that you leave on site.
Okay, got it.
And those, Tommy, one thing we didn't talk about was just cost. We talk about, the quality of the cut and how it works. But the major thing is we have a global labor shortage, and labor also is ever increasing. And I also see it as, how can we get people create new positions in companies where people have more upward mobility, where they can choose their purpose? What's your purpose? What's your mission? Right? That's why companies grow, is when they find the purpose in the person that they're training and developing, and they give them that space to do it. And we take them out of just a mowy role. And now I can take a person and say, would you like to be a robot technician? I'd love to train you to do that. Would you like that to be your purpose? And now we elevate people and train them to do that. And that's my real vision for why I also wanted to be part of this, was to do that for people.
You're on the cutting edge of technology and at the forefront of it right now, Bob. I am not surprised you're here right now talking about this new trend. And actually, it's not even a trend. It's just the way that the industry is headed towards. And I'm not shocked that you're here today, because you're always pushing further when people are also sort of behind you, right? You're the odd man to jump out and say, this is where I'm headed towards. Unbelievable, Bob. One last quick thing after we wrap up. We talked yesterday and like, Bob, tell me what's your quote? What's your mantra? What's your lifestyle? How do you work and play? Like, what do you live and die by?
Yeah, I would say, I like to do things pretty extreme, so I will say, like,
you're doing that right now.
One thing that'll kind of give you the idea of that was, like, I started in 2024. On the first of the year in 2024, I ran 24 miles. And I want to do that every year until I can't do that. So 1/1/2025, I ran 25 miles. I didn't train. I hadn't been running. I was like, okay, if I can go to work and work for 12 hours, 5 days a week, and then work for 3 or 4 hours on Saturday and Sunday, I can go and do anything for 5 hours. And so I go there, and once you chip away the first hour of it, you're like, oh, I only got 4 hours left of this. This is cake. And so, 25 miles was easier than the 24 from the year before. And I look forward to doing that. And people would ask, like, well, how sustainable is that? I don't know. That's the point. That's fun.
That's not the point. The point is I'm in the now right now. Yep.
Yeah. And I by doing that thing the first of the year, you just prove to yourself, like, I just got the hardest thing done for my whole year.
Yeah.
And everything else is just going to be like, I can look back at that and say, hey, I'm having a tough day, but I started out doing that and I didn't even know how it was going to go. And I just did it. But I thought about that, Tommy, just to keep it simple, was build for capacity and keep going.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. I love build for capacity. Keep going. That's great. I had a post this week that said, just do hard things. And we do hard things that builds you to a better person. And when you tackle those difficult things that are meant for you to come into your life, it makes you more accomplishable, like you figure things out. And so I'm with you. I'd love to do hard things. I'm a health fitness freak. I think taking care of yourself and doing the 25-mile run, I need you to send me some pictures or video of you the next time you're doing that. I'll just share that on my social feed, because that's amazing. Bob, oh my God, there is so much. I think we're at a record length of show here because there's so much to talk about. So I think we need to do another episode in the near future and get really deep into the Crest products and what they mean and some advantages, because we just kind of get a good 30,000 foot elevation. And I think our audience is going to hear more about it. So we'll have to do that here in the next few months. Have a repeat of you and your face and your awesome energy.
Yeah, thank you, Tommy. It's you as well. This has been a lot of fun, and I look forward to meeting with you again.
Absolutely. All right, Bob Carey of Crest Outdoor and Power Equipment. Go find him on LinkedIn. His last name is Carey. He is a trend center. Go give him a follow. Watch him on LinkedIn on all his posts. They're fascinating. Also, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Garrett, the owner of Grow Outdoor Living up there in Washington. Fabulous owner, great Ace Group member. Love that guy. And you can follow us on any social media platform and give us a listen, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Tommy.
Ready to take the next step? Download our free profitability scorecard to quickly create your own baseline financial assessment and uncover the fastest ways to improve your business. Just go to mcfarlandstanford.com/scorecard to get yours today. To learn more about McFarland Stanford, our best-in-class peer groups, and other services, go to our website at mcfarlandstanford.com, and don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time on The Roots of Success.